Getting over the narcissist, why is it so hard? Months after the breakup, I still couldn't stop thinking about my narcissistic ex. No matter how much he devalued me, part of me still longed for his approval. I was haunted by the person I became in his presence. When we first met, he made me feel so beautiful and confident. He lavished me with flattery and gifts, made me believe I was the center of his world. I'd never felt so desirable before. That intoxicating feeling became like a drug. The more indifferent he grew, the harder I tried to win back his adoration. I was addicted to the way he once looked at me like I was the only woman alive. Even now, my mind kept drifting back to memories of our love, romantic flashes of our whirlwind beginning. It was hard to accept that his Prince Charming act was all fake. This charming, attentive man was not the real him. I had to grieve the illusion I fell in love with. Make peace that his sweet words were all lies, his gifts just calculated transactions. This ideal lover only existed in my imagination. The real man was cruel, cold, and incapable of love. The fantasy was intoxicating, but the reality was painful. I had to make space for new love by letting this dream fully die. Though he still occupied my thoughts now, one day I would be free. I had to be gentle with myself in this process. When we met, he seemed absolutely perfect, handsome, successful, charming beyond belief. He told me I was the woman he had been waiting his whole life to meet. The dates he planned were straight out of a romance novel, picnics, moonlit walks, decadent dinners. I felt like a princess who had found a soulmate. I didn't care that things moved incredibly fast. We were swept up in what felt like fate. Future plans were made instantly, he mused about our dream wedding, the children we'd have someday. It felt like our relationship was on fast forward. The intensity was intoxicating, his passion for me seemed boundless. Until one day it wasn't. After a dream vacation together, he suddenly went cold. My texts and calls were met with one-word answers or ghosts. I was desperate. I wrote him long romantic letters, left voicemails begging for an explanation. The switch from totally infatuated to completely indifferent was shocking. When he finally hoovered me back in with sweet nothings, I was pathetically grateful. I blamed myself. I must have done something wrong to make him withdraw his love so harshly. But I promised myself I would learn from my mistake, be better, and regain what we had. I missed that intoxicating high of being his soulmate so badly. The cycle would repeat over and over until I was a shell of myself. The highs got shorter and lower, the lows longer and crueler, but still I clung on. Leaving him would mean losing that euphoric feeling forever. So I endured the misery of his contempt for those fleeting crumbs of passion. Those first idyllic dates filled me with such hope. I really believed I had met my soulmate, the one I'd been waiting for. The way he looked at me, I felt truly seen for the first time. Like I was the most captivating woman in the universe. He planned such thoughtful dates, remembering every insignificant detail I had mentioned about my preferences. The gifts he showered me with were straight out of a fairy tale, extravagant jewelry, glasses of rare wine, intimate picnics by the lake. I'd never been treated with such care and adoration before. He hung on my every word, was fascinated by every unique quirk about me. I could do no wrong in his eyes then. When we made love, he told me I was perfection incarnate. I realize now the idealization was too extreme to be genuine or sustainable, but I was so starved for that kind of attention and passion after years of neglect. I felt so incredibly special, cherished, appreciated in a way I had only ever dreamed about. So when the cracks started to appear in his charming veneer, I made endless excuses. Told myself he was just having a bad day. I'd done something to provoke his callous words or aloof indifference. If I just loved him better, was more accommodating, he would go back to Prince Charming mode. I clung desperately to the memory of those first blissful weeks, ignored all the signs that his Prince Charming act was just an illusion, a fantasy he had constructed to seduce me with no substance or staying power. I kept investing in the dream, even as reality turned into a nightmare. The whiplash of going from being the center of his universe to utterly discarded took my breath away. One day, I was a goddess on a pedestal. The next, I was barely worth a text back. It was jarring, feeling that intoxicating love withdrawn so suddenly and cruelly. I analysed our last interactions obsessively, trying to figure out what I had done to make him go cold. If I could just pinpoint my mistake, I could fix it. I refused to believe the man who had worshipped my every move could be indifferent for no reason at all. So I waited anxiously for his Hoover, ready to do anything to regain his approval. When he finally came around flashing that high-wattage charisma again, I melted. In that moment, all was forgiven. He still loved me after all. I felt that addictive rush of relief and validation. And so the cycle would continue until I was questioning my own sanity. The highs got shorter and his rages more frequent. Yet still, I clung to hope that the man I originally fell for would return for good. Leaving would mean never feeling that intoxicating high again. So I eagerly accepted the crumbs he offered during his hot cycles, bracing myself for the cold.
Why is it so hard to get over a narcissistic partner even after they have devalued you?
It's excruciating grieving someone who still lives in our mind, but not in reality. The charming, attentive lover you first met was a mirage, an illusion projected by the narcissist to ensnare you. Like a moth to flame, we're drawn in by their larger-than-life persona and are temporarily filled up by their obsessive focus on us. But it's simply a role they're playing, a facade, with nothing real behind it. No actual ability to sustain intimacy or love. Over time, the charming mask slips off, as they reveal their true, empty, disordered self underneath. This leaves us pining for the fictional person they first pretended to be. Almost like a drug, we crave that initial intoxication.
How do I stop comparing every new partner to the fantasy I built up with a narcissist?
The narcissist set an unrealistic standard during idealization. No one can sustain that level of intensity. When you expect instant chemistry and fireworks, you overlook the quieter beauty of real relationships. A healthy partnership builds slowly based on trust, compatibility, and commitment. Focus on shared values, empathy, compromise, not grand gestures. Let go of the false narrative that the one is this intoxicating romantic hero. True love comes when both choose each other daily, faults and all. Don't compare new dates to a fictional person. Focus on how they make you feel. Your needs matter. Listen to your instincts when something feels off.
How'd I stop feeling addicted to the highs and lows with the narcissist and accept the relationship is over?
Admit to yourself the relationship was unhealthy and impossible to sustain long term. The highs came from an illusion tailored to trigger your deepest desires, not reality. In time, the lows and abuse always overtook any limited affection. Going no contact helps release this trauma bond. Fill your life with new passions so you don't fixate on their approval. Stay strong knowing you deserve steady, calm waters, not this emotional hurricane. The infatuation will fade. Nurture yourself with the gentle love they could not provide.